This video is a brief description of what it was like to be mestizo during the colonial period of New Spain. The information in this video is based on a book titled The Essential History of Mexico by Philip L. Russell, published in 2016 by Routledge. The term mestizo means a person of mixed race. In colonial New Spain, the term was used to describe a people group, specifically those who were of Spanish and native blood. Mestizos in New Spain were a social class. The mestizo would ultimately become the dominant element of Mexican society. New Spain was divided into a social hierarchy, which dictated your status and value within the colony based upon your bloodline and skin color. The whiter you were in New Spain, the more opportunity you had to move up in the social hierarchy and attain wealth as well as property. The social hierarchy was divided into the following categories. Spanish-born were at the top of the social hierarchy. They were the viceroys, archbishops, and they held any position of true influence or authority. Criollos came second on the hierarchy. They were people of Spanish blood who were born in the New World. Mestizos ranked third in the social hierarchy. They were legally allowed to own property and businesses. Many of them assumed great wealth. However, they were not legally allowed to attend the university or hold a government office. Many mestizos became shop owners and artisans. Mulattoes were considered lower than mestizos. Natives were considered below mulattoes. Many natives looked to become mestizo during this time period as a way to advance in the social hierarchy. African slaves were below the natives. However, something to keep in mind is that African slaves often were placed in supervisory roles over native workers. So as you can see, for a native to become mestizo, it meant they would move up two social classes. This was an opportunity which many natives took advantage of. And it was possible because mestizo, although being a bloodline, it was also an ethnicity. It differed from a racial category because mestizos were hard to define by color. The reason being is they ranged from the lightest people to the darkest people and all skin tones in between. Those who were of lighter skin still had an advantage. The mestizo culture was an amalgamation of both Spanish and native cultures. Culture, as defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary, updated 2016, accessed on their website, is the beliefs, customs, art, etc. of a particular society, group, place, or time. The mestizo culture attempted to imitate Spanish culture in many ways while incorporating their native culture. For example, the mestizos converted to Catholicism, yet still kept many of their idols, only they changed the names to Christian names or Spanish-sounding names. The mestizo also learned Spanish, but since there were so many names of things in the New World that the Spanish did not have words for, many of these New World staples retained their native names. Mestizos also adopted the clothing style of the Spanish. They began to wear trousers, boots, and hats like the Spanish. Culture played a major role in the assimilation of the native and the mestizo into Spanish culture. It is what helped define the mestizo ethnically. Since ethnicity is neither your race nor your culture, but rather how you self-identify, this was the way that natives were able to become mestizos and mestizos were able to assimilate into Spanish culture. Ethnically, mestizos and natives identified with Spanish culture in order to gain wealth and advance in the social hierarchy. In order for a native to do this, they would shed their native identity and move from their villages to a Spanish community or the Spanish colonies. The natives would begin to call themselves mestizos, and it was seen as an opportunity for advancement. Although ethnically, both natives and mestizos identified as Spanish, what kept them from being recognized as Spanish was their race. Race was a combination of bloodline, skin color, and skin tone. The Spanish still held a racial superiority ideology in their society. This meant that those of a lighter skin tone were viewed as more valuable, smarter, and more attractive. Here are a few examples of how the Spanish separated the various groups by skin tone and bloodlines. The mestizo was the Spanish and the native. The mulatto was the Spanish and the African. The moriscos was the Spanish and the mulatto. The zambos, the native and the African. For the mestizo, the Spanish colonial period was a time of opportunity. It was the birth of the mestizo culture, ethnicity, and race. The mestizo benefited the most from the Spanish colonial period because without it, they would have not existed as they did. Not only did they become a people, but mestizo families grew in rapid numbers, becoming one of the largest demographics in a short amount of time. Mestizo families often had more children than both native or European families. And it was because of this growth and diversity that the mestizo would eventually become the dominant element of Mexican society.